Hey everybody, and welcome back to 1908. Once again, we've got the Pirates of the Reds, and for another one of these, Pirates are at 4-2 so far this season. Sorry, Reds are 0-6. First, it's Honus Wagner rolls a 31 for an 8 against Billy Campbell, and that ends up being a little ground ball over to shortstop, and it's going to be Holsworth who makes the play. It throws to first base for the out, one away. Here is Fred Clark. He rolls a 35 for a 40, and with that 40, that's going to be a foul ball. We're going to have another roll here for Clark. He rolls a 54 this time for a 45. We do have a little E rule that we're going to have to worry about here, and that rule is a 65. That means that it's a fly out over there to right field. Mitchell has it for the second out. Here's Tommy Leach. Leach rolls a 61 for a 39. That changes to a 36. Doesn't really matter. It's going to be a ball. Next roll is a 44 for an 8, and that's a fly ball over to center field, and it's going to be Kane making that one for the out, and down they go. Here comes Hans Lobert for the Reds. Lobert rolls a 12 for a 24, and that's a ground ball over to shortstop to Wagner, makes the throw to first, one out. Here's Miller Huggins. Huggins rolls a 34 for a 44, and here comes a little E chance. Next roll is a 46. And that ends up being out of the little E range. That's a little fly ball over to Becker in center field, 2 away. And here's John Gansel, and he rolls a 24 for a 13, and he strikes out. We go to the top of the second just like that. Reds in this era were not exactly a great team, and it's kind of a shame because the Cincinnati Enquirer is one of the best baseball papers in the country around this era, especially around 1900, 1901, 1902. It was still very good in 1908, but they didn't have much of a team back then. Abaticcio is up here for Pittsburgh, top of the second, rolls a 43 for a 29, and that's a little ground ball back to Billy Campbell, the pitcher, throws to first base for the out, one away. Here's Owen Wilson. Wilson rolls a 65 for a 35, and here comes a little E roll. It's a 55, and so that ends up being a little pop foul out to Lobert. The third baseman, 2 away, and here's Harry Swasino, rolls a 53 for a 20. That changes to a 22. It's a little comebacker over to Campbell, and he boots it, and that ends up putting Swasino there on first base. Here's Beals Becker now. Becker, with 2 outs, rolls a 46 for a 27, and that's a little ground ball over to third base. Lobert's got it, throws to first for the out. That does it. Bottom of the second inning now, and it is Dode Paskert up there, rolls a 65 for a 35, and here comes another little E roll. This one's a 41 out of the range. That's a little pop up over to Tommy Leach. He grabs that in the foul territory, 1 away. Here's John Kane. Kane rolls a 56 for a 34, and that's a pop-up over to Honus Wagner now for the second out. Here's Mike Mitchell. Rolls a 61 for a 27, and that's a ground ball over to Leach. Throws to first for the out, and that does it. And George Gibson now up there, top of the third inning. No hits in this one, not much offense, only the 1 error from Cincinnati. That's been about it. Gibson rolls a 62 for a 12, and the little E will come into play once again. It rolls a 64, and so that's out of the range. It's a little ground ball over to Gansel at first base, makes the play by himself. Here's Nick Maddox. Maddox rolls a 56 for a 34. A little E roll will come up once again. It rolls a 21, and that means there is going to be an error on this play, and another error on Billy Campbell, who's committed 2 errors so far in this one. Campbell has a 1 for the pitching fielding rating. Now, if you don't know APBA and these systems that well, if you're a pitcher, you're either a 1 or a 2, which is kind of funny because there's fielding 1, 2, and 3. Campbell's a 1, which is the worst one. The worst of the 2. Here's Honus Wagner with that great card. Wagner rolls a 23 for a 29. That's a comeback over to Campbell. Makes the play this time. Throws to first for the out, 2 away. And here's Fred Clark. So even Honus can't seem to buy ahead in this one. Clark rolls a 55 for an 8, and that is a single over second base. And Kane has the ball in center field, throws over to McLean, the catcher, for the out, and they get him trying to score. And we go to the bottom of the third inning, still no score, but that was the first base hit of the ball game. Here's Rudy Holsworth for Cincinnati, rolls a 45 for a 14, and he walks. Maddox having some problems with his control here early on, and here's Larry McLean. Rolls a 53 for a 19. That will change to an 18 because of the internal randomizer, and that means that's an error on Honus Wagner. And we have runners in first and third now for Cincinnati with Billy Campbell up there. The question is, okay, do we bunt or do we hit and run? Let's try to hit and run here with him, actually, sort of see what happens. The roll is a 16 for a 26. And we are playing the infield back, of course. No need to play in this early. And that ends up being a little ground ball over to second base to, who's that out there? Abaticcio. And he makes the play over to first. They let the run score. 1-0 now, Cincinnati. And here's Hans Lobert. Rolls a 54 for a 45. And a little E will come up. The roll is a 55 there. That's a little fly ball over to right field, not bothering anyone. Wilson's got it. That's the second out. Here's Miller Huggins. He rolls a 12 for a 24, and this little pop fly over to Honus Wagner makes the play. We go to the top of the 4th inning now. 1-0 Cincinnati, and they haven't had a hit yet. And Tommy Leach up there rolls a 16 for a 26. That's a ground ball over to Huggins. Throws the first for the first out. Next up is Abaticio. Rolls a 44 for an 8. Single for Abaticio, but the little C will get him as he's thrown out trying to steal. And there's Owen Wilson now. He rolls a 55 for an 8, and there's a clean base hit. Wilson does not try to steal afterwards. Harry Swasina with 2 outs rolls a 12 for a 24, and that's a little ground ball over to the shortstop Hulswith. He goes the easy way to Huggins for the out at second, and that does it. We go to the bottom of the 4th, still 1-0 Cincinnati. John Gansel rolls a 46 for a 29, which is a comebacker to Nick Maddox, and he throws to first base for the out, 1 away. Dode Paskert now. He rolls a 24 for a 13, and there's a strikeout. Second strikeout of the game so far from Nick Maddox. Not a great strikeout pitcher. Up next, John Kane rolls a 15 for an 11. And that gets him a base hit and a stolen base afterwards. So Mike Mitchell here has a chance to do something with 2 outs, bottom of the 4th inning. He rolls a 41 for a 28, and you can forget about it. Ground ball to Honus Wagner, throws the first for the out, and we go to the top of the 5th just like that. Fast-paced ball game, not much offense. Beals Becker rolls a 13 for a 40. That's a foul ball. That's 1 strike on him. Next rolls a 64 for a 29. That's a little ground ball back to Billy Campbell. Throws the first for the out, 1 away. Here's George Gibson. He rolls a 12 for a 24. And that gives us another little E chance. And this rolls a 36 out of the range. That's a little ground ball over to shortstop to Hulswith. Throws over to first for the out. And that's 2 away now for Nick Maddox. He rolls a 44 for a 7. Base hit for the pitcher. Only the 4th hit of the game for the Pirates. 5th hit of the game overall. And here's Honus Wagner hitting .333 this season. He rolls a 61 for a 39. That changes to a 38. And it would be runner steal second if Maddox wasn't so slow, but he's a little bit slow, so nothing's happening there. Next rolls a 53 for a 19. And that is going to be a single for Wagner over to third base. That sends Maddox to second. That brings up Fred Clark now with 2 outs here. The Pirates with a chance to do something. Top of the 5th inning, down 1-0 rather. The rolls a 26 for a 30. It's a fly ball over to Pasker in left field. He makes the catch for the out. And here comes Rudy Hulswith now. Bottom of the 5th inning, 1-0 Reds with the lead, playing at home here. 1 hit for the Reds in this game. Hulswith rolls the 65 for a 35, and we have a little E roll. Rolls a 56, nothing happening. That's a foul ball over to Tommy Leach. Makes the catch, 1 away. Here's Larry McLean. He rolls a 42 for a 30, and that's a little fly ball over to Clark in left field. 2 outs. And here is Billy Campbell. He rolls a 25 for a 13. Man, so these numbers you see that end in 5, I mean, we'll do a different video on this, and I know other people will tell you about this too, but numbers that end in 5 are supposed to be good, right? 13 on 25 tells me that you're not a good hitter. Oh, man. I mean, I know he's the pitcher, but that's bad for a pitcher, man. That's just awful. Tommy Leach here, top of the 6th inning for the Pirates, down 1-0. Leach rolls a 42 for a 13. There's a strikeout for Campbell. Billy's first strikeout of the game after striking out looking really bad against Maddox up there. Abaticio rolls a 53 for a 19, and that's changed to a 22, and that's going to be another error on Billy Campbell. 3 errors in this ballgame for the Reds, all 3 charged to the pitcher. Here comes Owen Wilson. Not a good game for Campbell for so many reasons. And Wilson rolls a 22 for a 7, and that's a single. Abaticio stays at second. If you're a fan of APBA, you might be wondering, well, it's a 7 with a runner on first base. How come you don't have runners in second or third? These boards are slowed down a bit. And we can look into national pastime, compare that with APBA and with NP3. I don't remember which is which and what comes from where or whatever. All I know is that in NP3, basically the 22-7 will give you runners on first and second for the most part, unless there are 2 outs or you have an F runner on first base. So Wilson single sends Abaticio all the way over to second base, and here comes Harry Swasina, and we're going to bunt with Swasina. 1 out, runners on first and second, top of the 6th inning, and down 1-0. Of course, we're going to bunt. Roll is a 65 for a 35, and that is a little foul out to the catcher, McLean. That's an awful, awful bunt by Swasina. Here comes Beals Becker now, 2 outs, and it's not really a scoring situation anymore. Rolls a 14 for a 43, and they better hope they get a range within the little E range, or roll within the little E range. The roll's a 53, which is out of the range. That means that's a fly ball over to the left fielder Paskert, and that does it. We go to the bottom of the 6th, and here is Hans Lobert. Lobert rolls a 26 for a 27. That's a ground ball over to Leach. Third baseman throws to first for the out. 1 away. Here's Miller Huggins. Huggins rolls a 42 for a 13, and Nick Maddox gets his 4th strikeout of the game, and here's John Gansel. rolls a 22 for a 7. There's a clean single to right field. Second hit of the game for the Reds, and they're leading in this one. Here's Dode Pasker now. Rolls a 45 for a 14, and he gets his base on balls, and that brings up John Kane. Not much strategy here because there's been 2 outs the whole time. Kane rolls a 26, sorry about that, for a 27, and that's a ground ball over to Leach. He flips over to Abaticio for the out at second. We go to the bottom of the 7th, and top of the 7th rather. Here's George Gibson, rolls a 64 for a 13, and that's a strikeout for Billy Campbell, number 2. That brings up Nick Maddox. We're going to keep him in, of course. He rolls a 62 for a 12, and there's that pesky little E, and that little E is always somewhere. Whoops, I'm not even looking where I'm rolling. 55 is the roll. That's out of little E range. That means it's a little ground ball to Gansel, the first baseman. Does it himself, 2 away. And here's Honus Wagner. Hans up there rolls a 41 for a 28. That is a ground ball over to Holsworth. It's shortstop. Makes the play to first for the out. We go to the bottom of the 7th, and here's Mike Mitchell. 1-0 game. One of those games. Mitchell rolls a 42 for a 32, and he hits a fly ball to Wilson in right field. 1 out. Here's Rudy Holsworth. Rolls a 42 for a 32 again. Another fly ball over there to Wilson, 2 away. And here's McLean. He rolls a 22 for a 7. So McLean able to straighten it out. There's hit number 3 for the Reds. And here's that man again, Billy Campbell. Look at all those 13s. Remember Vita Blues card in 1974? Anyway, Campbell rolls the 32 for a 26. That's a little ground ball over to Abaticio. Flips it to Wagner, who's covering second. We go to the top of the 8th, and here's Fred Clark. 1-0 still the score. Clark rolls a 33 for a 7, and there's a nice clean base hit, number 7 for the Pirates, and we're going to hit and run with Clark on at first, and here's Tommy Leach. Ooh, he rolls a 44 for an 8, and that's going to be a good hit and run base hit, and that will send Clark over to third, and Abaticio up here with a chance to really do something, and I think we're going to hit and run again. Let me take a quick look at this Tommy Leach card. Yeah, with a card like that, we're going to hit and run. Better to hit and run here than to sacrifice. What does the Bible say? It's to obey, or what is it? To sacrifice is good, to obey is better. So let's hope that Abaticio will obey here. His rolls a 51 for a 9, and that ends up being a hit and run, ground out over to Huggins at second base, and he throws over to first for the out. Scores 1 run, sends Leach up to second base now with 1 out, and here's Owen Wilson, who is going to bunt. We'll set this up for Swasina. 1-1 ball game now as the Pirates have come back. And the roll's a 54 for a 45, and that's a good bunt over to Gansel, who the first baseman throws over to Huggins, covering first for the out. Leach moves to third. Here's Swasina now with a chance to drive it in. He rolls a 56 for a 34. We should have forgotten about the whole thing, but there is a little E attached with it. And the roll's an 11, and that's your lucky E. And there's a little ground ball over to Gansel, the first baseman, who boots it. And Swasina gets first and second on the air, and the run scores, and that brings up Beals Becker. The Pirates have come back in this one. They've come back in pretty dramatic fashion. Becker rolls a 52 for a 27. That is a ground ball over to third base. Lobert has it, makes the play to first for the out, and we go to the bottom of the 8th inning. And here comes Hans Lobert. Doesn't that always happen? Make a good play in the field, and then you're up to lead off the next inning. Lobert rolls a 34 for a 44. It's a fly ball to Becker in center field for the first out. And Miller Huggins up there now rolls a 36 for a 33. That's a little pop-up over to Abaticio for the second out. And here's John Gansel. He rolls a 33. Had a look again for a 0. Gansel with a second chance, and the second roll is a 54. I think you can see that here. 54 is the second roll. That means he gets a measly single to right field for all of his effort. Here's Dode Pasker now. That's hit number 4 for the Reds. Pasker rolls a 55 for an 8, and there is a single, and the runner is going to be thrown out of third base. And it's because Gansel is not fast, right? Yeah, he's a slow runner, and that really comes back to haunt them. So the Reds run themselves out of that inning despite getting the 2 hits, and we go to the top of the 9th inning, and here is George Gibson. Gibson rolls a 53 for an 18, which is changed to a 20, and that ends up being a little ground ball over to Huggins, makes the play over to first base for the out. There's 1 away. Here's Nick Maddox, the pitcher. Rolls a 62 for a 12, and we try for the E. Rolls a 54, and that means it's a little ground ball over to Gansel. The first baseman does it himself, 2 away, and here's Honus Wagner. Wagner 1 for 4 today, not having the best of games. He rolls a 45 for a 14. He gets the walk and then steals a base afterwards, and boy, you love that. It's the same as the double. Fred Clark up there now with a chance to drive another one in. He rolls a 14 for a 43, and here comes that little E, and let's see if something happens here. Now the roll's a 42. Forget about that one. That's a fly ball over to Kane in center field, makes the play himself. We go to the bottom of the 9th, and here's John Kane. He rolls a 35 for a 42. So Kane is hit by a pitch here to lead off the bottom of the ninth inning. And that might set something up here for the Reds. Because you never quite know what's going to happen next. Now, you notice that Kane is actually a fast runner. And so we'll see what he can do. We'll see what kind of strategy we come up with here in the bottom of the ninth inning. That brings up Mike Mitchell now. And I'm going to take a quick look here at Kane's card. And yeah, he does have the 11, which means that we're probably best off doing a hit and run. And you'll notice here, of course, that there's not too much that the defense can do about it. That's kind of the joy of playing games that are APBA-based. You know, I know with Diamond Mine Baseball, you get a lot more choices. You play something like Action PC or OOTP, you'll get even more choices than that. But if you're playing solo against yourself, it's kind of hard because you don't want to, you know, poison the well a little bit, know what it is you're doing on offense and then do the same thing on defense to counter it or whatever. So, you know, sometimes it's better to have a little bit less choice in these games, a little bit more realistic. We're going to do a hit and run, though, with Kane, that's for sure. And the roll is a 31 for a 14. And that ends up being a stolen base for Kane. It normally would be runner out stealing, but he does have an 11 in the first column of his card, which is why I checked for it. And so that puts Kane into scoring position as he gets the clutch steal. And hey, you never know. Maybe it's going to happen. Maybe the Reds are going to have a chance to drive one in. The question now is, do we bunt with Mitchell? Do we swing away? And looking at his card, I say, hey, let's swing away, man. Look at that on-base percentage. It's above 300. The roll is a 26 for a 27. That's a little ground ball over to Leach, the third baseman, who makes the play at first base for the out. And that's probably the worst place in the world you could hit that ground ball. You hit that ground ball over to the right side, then you have a chance at maybe getting the runner over. And then it's the same thing as if you had Mitchell bunt, but because you hit it to the left side, there's no way for the runner to move, and it's kind of a wasted play. Here's Rudy Hulswith, and the question is, what do the Reds have here on the bench? All right, not good, not good. Maury's no better, not good. And Schley, we're giving the day off, the catcher. None of these pitchers can hit. Jake Weimer, maybe we'd put him in for a pinch hitter. I mean, if we need a pinch hitter, it would be between Weimer and Mowry, and I think Weimer looks like he's the better of the two. We're going to let Rudy Hulswith hit. Another thing we want to look at really quick is McLean. McLean is actually a worse hitter than Hulswith. And the reason why I look at that is because the question is, do we bunt with Hulswith or do we let him hit away? I think we let him swing away in this situation. So the thing to keep in mind when I play these games is that I'm always thinking about, okay, what is the best thing we can do to win the game? That's the first thing we think about. And the second thing is, well, what's realistic given the year, given the period, given the situation, and so on. But since we're focusing first on winning, we are going to try to win this ball game. And so with Hulswith, we are going to swing away. And he rolls a 41 for a 28. That's a ground ball again to the left side. That's a ground ball that Honus Wagner fields cleanly and throws over to first base for the out. That's the second out. And once again, we probably would have been better off bunting with both of those at-bats. And so, there's a lot of second guessing you can do here and there. I'm just saying that if you're trying to understand what it is that I'm doing and why it is that I would do it this way, the idea here, first and foremost, is to try to win the game. We're going to pinch hit from McLean. We're going to put in Jake Weimer, just like I was saying. He has a card that looks like a pinch hitter's card. If the Reds tie this game, which I doubt will happen, then we'll figure that out when that happens. What we care about is trying to get one of these base hits and trying to drive that run home because that's the only real chance that we have. And the roll is a 56 for a 34, and that is going to be a high pop out over Tapatio, and he makes the play for the out. And so just like that, in the end, the Pirates have won this game, coming back from behind to win it. And that's the way that the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. So it wasn't exactly the best played of games. The Pirates kind of deserved the victory with their 8 hits. Did leave 9 on base, though. The Reds only with 5 hits in the game, got their 1 run, didn't get a single hit to get that, and looked overall fairly pathetic. Having said that, I hope you enjoyed this one. I always like playing these MP3 games. I don't know what it's like for the viewer, but for the player, I actually like playing MP3 more than I like playing Diamond Mine. And I love playing Diamond Mine, but MP3 gives me more of that feeling of power. I like doing the engine by myself, by hand. Anyway, hope you're having a good day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.